YouTube world. I think Matt's gonna sneeze. So this is the Auto Riff Special Edition, new mini series, kind of, I don't know, mini series, but ongoing, I guess. We're gonna call it Tailgate Chat with Clint and Matt. Hi,
It's
Matt.
like it almost seems like a companion series. Like it
Yeah,
flows with it.
I am labeling this as episode 11 though, so
Oh,
but like it's just gonna go back and forth. It'll be so on the off weeks of the history show, we'll do these, and then I'll do the history show, and then we'll go back and do one of these, unless these turn out to be super popular, in which I'll probably still keep to that schedule because you are busy doing your podcast, plus writing a book, plus nursing
nursing
school.
school. But that doesn't start till August, so we can that we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Right. So this episode, we're gonna do kind of weird chats with this one, with this series in general. So this one is a premise of what would we do if we started a car company, but with the what word am I looking for? This is why you can't do lives, because then you're like, I'm frozen and I don't know what I'm supposed to say. With the
It's
caveat,
okay. It's always like that at first.
is caveat the right word?
Is what?
Caveat?
Caveat?
Caveat? Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh my
you're
gosh.
welcome.
Oh.
Yeah. AT word of the day.
Of you only have enough money to do one car or vehicle, one vehicle, I should say, and you have to buy an engine from another company and a chassis from another company. And again, that's all the money you have. So what kind of vehicle are you making?
Now, I did have a question. So we talked about this topic. I just specifically did not ask you any other questions so that we could talk about it here.
Yes.
Which I have to tell you fights my urge to like question everything.
No, I wanted to talk about it a lot more too, and then I was like, no, because that's going to completely defeat the point of the show.
Right. I was like, wait, because I'm so used to just outing all my thoughts with no filter to you, and you're like, yeah, same, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So what are your questions?
My question was, so is this vehicle, are we assuming that there's no biases in the vehicle? Like,
Correct.
No matter what kind of like truck, car, hatchback, it'll sell equally. Or is this what's going to get everybody's attention?
Yes. You are a business owner.
Like
you are starting a business.
Xterra, like saved Nissan at the time,
Yes.
Like that was like their ace in the hole. Okay.
This is your business, and you have to take into consideration how it's going to sell.
So this is the opening car that's going to get my name out there, get my business going, and then I have more creative license later.
Yes. So what kind of brought about this idea was, so Tesla, obviously now huge company, right?
Right.
I mean, relatively huge. They basically started the electric car, but they started with a little Lotus Elise that they put batteries and electric motors in. So that was my idea, was like, I don't know that if I was going to start I mean, obviously it worked for Tesla, but they also had a super rich guy behind it.
Right. Starting with a Lotus, that is not something, so.
Right. Like if you're like, to me, I'm going to look for volume, right? Like I want something I can sell.
Right. So growing up in a trailer park, starting with a Lotus would definitely not be the first thing I jumped to.
No, exactly.
I would think my first instinct is to let's go with reliable, what's going to compete, because you're not going to overtake anybody in the first 5 years unless you're just somehow have a random hit, which chances of that are like 0.01%. So I would say you want to stick along the lines of something like the Corolla, the Civic, the Jetta. You want to stick in something that catches the eye but doesn't accidentally become a niche vehicle, because then people like the XA, XB, that just it burned out so fast. But why did the TC succeed? Because it wasn't quite entry level, but it was fun. There was a class it fit into, whereas the other two were kind of entry level, but almost, it just made everybody kind of wary. So you want to use something that can be repaired, easy on the insurance, easy on gas, and functional. So I would think sedan or small to medium SUV. It would be those two is what I would go with.
Okay.
Engine, I would say probably Toyota engines, because Toyota and Lexus have incredible reputations for they might little shit might break, but that car will always start. So buying a car for mama, mama's gonna get to church every week. Kid's gonna get to college and back. You trust it. Is it safe in an accident? Well, Corollas were I don't know if they still are, but they were like the highest rated for years and years and years.
Well, they're like the best-selling vehicle of all time.
Right.
Also,
So you're not. My goal would not be to try to overtake the Toyota Corolla, but what selling points about it are things that maybe should inspire me to create something of my own if I have to purchase and I have the licensing to buy buy an engine and chassis. It's going to come from probably that.
okay.
And then of course modify it to fit. In my mind, some modifying a
We're
vehicle
just
is
going to
fit.
say that any motor will slide into any chassis. Obviously, that's not
Yeah,
necessarily, but like
we're
this just we're in a fictitious world here. Neither one of us has enough money to start a car company.
Right. You
Not even
guys just heard me
together.
mention trailer park, right? You know,
Right.
like
Yes.
So yeah, that would be my vote. That's where I would start. What about you? What's
So I've obviously thought about this a lot because I wrote down this idea. I would start. So I'll preface this by saying my head says yes, I would love to start with a sports car, but my brain and the idea of I've got to sell units
right? It's
tells
important.
me I should start with an SUV.
Right, that would actually yeah. I was torn between car and SUV because that's going to depend on what kind of area you live in. Like I live in Texas. The smart thing for
Yeah.
me would be to do the SUV.
Or a truck. Yeah.
Or a truck.
Which really, if you look at a lot of companies that are coming out right now, like there's Lordstown Motors, is Rivian, and then there's a few other ones, but they're all starting with electric trucks.
Right.
Which is another thing I thought about, like, well, do you go gas engine or electric motor? Obviously, and
I
we'll
think
kind of
I'd start with gas right now. As a brand new company, I would definitely start with gas because that's what the populace kind of knows. So
yeah,
that would be
and
my
obviously, like,
would
and
be
that's
my
that's the other part of being like the niche, but niche but doesn't sell versus you could pump out some volume.
right, because also if your target audience is only because you have to look at demographics too. So where I live, selling high-end electric vehicles that even if they were the most reliable in the world, who's getting financed for 40 to 50 grand right now? And if you can get finance
Yeah.
for 40 to 50 grand and be comfortable with it, then you probably have it to buy cash.
Right.
That is not common. So taking into account where you live and what the conditions are, like here, it's flatland. So you're you're mostly pulling things and not really up a mountain either, because
Yeah.
it's Texas. But I don't know, is it mountainous where you are?
Not really.
Yeah,
No.
in Pennsylvania, though, it was very different because I lived in Cumberland Valley. I was surrounded by mountains. I literally
Yeah.
could stand and look at mountains from almost every direction from my house. Yeah.
I'm in the Ottawa Valley, but it's very like valley, like you're at the bottom of the valley here.
Do you feel like it's more if you look at like a topographical map, it'd be like the Ottawa Ditch compared to like say
Kind
when
of.
you think valley versus mountains? Yeah.
We're like right next to a river too, so I don't really get. I don't. There's a few like areas with giant hills, but more so on the Quebec side, like the other side of the river.
Gotcha.
So, and I know I've thought about this a lot, and I'm still hemming and hawing over this. I have one vehicle to make. It's going to be an SUV, like I said. I want it to be a little bit sporty, though.
Yeah, you want to have some edge to it. You don't want to basically
Yeah.
have the minivans of SUVs.
Right. So
Don't do Buicks like what Buick does. Like they try to like our selling point of this Buick is it doesn't look like a Buick. Sir, if that's your marketing, maybe it's time for
maybe you shouldn't have a Buick.
maybe it's time for a facelift.
Maybe you should have
it's time
kept
for a
Pontiac and got rid
rebranding.
of Buick.
Yeah. When I worked for Pontiac, there was a Buick GMC dealership attached to it. Was all one auto group, as you remember, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove some of the Buicks because I had to understand them and drive them. And it was like driving a couch, but it was like driving a really boring couch,
I don't, and like the Buicks now, I don't really know where they fit because like, well, GM is, we're getting way off topic here, but whatever. GM is, so you have Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, and Cadillac, right? And Chevrolet and GMC and Chevrolet and GMC obviously depends on. I mean, GMC is mostly the SUVs and trucks, or it is only the SUVs and trucks, and they're like slightly higher value than the Chevrolet. They're like Chevrolets with a little bit of chrome on them, and but then
yeah, that's true.
Then Cadillac though is like upper scale cars, which you understand. Like I understand Cadillac's place, I understand Chevrolet's place. I don't understand Buick and GMC's place. GMC is for people who want a Chevy but don't want to own a Chevy, I guess.
That's funny.
Or are closer to a GMC dealership, which usually Chevrolet and GMC are the same dealership.
I literally just think of trucks only. I don't know if they've ever really done anything else, but all I can
Well, they have that in SUVs. I mean, they have like the not the Tahoe,
Yukon. Was it the Yukon?
Yukon, yeah, the Yukon. And then they have a couple the Traverse. No, the Traverse is a Chevrolet. See, it's the Terrain. They have the Terrain, GMC Terrain.
Yeah, I don't even think of their SUV lineup. I only think of just like trucks.
Yeah, you think of their trucks, which is just they took a Chevy and threw a different grill on it and said, "Boom, new truck."
So I've had a Cobalt, a Cavalier, and a Cruise, and all of them broke in the weirdest ways. Now they always started, but the weirdest little things always broke, and I would think those are yay GM, and I ultimately took the Cruise in. The Cobalt the Cavalier went away. I sold it or got rid of it, but the Cobalt I wore out, and that became my Chevy Cruise, which I drove for a couple years, and then traded that in for a titanium edition Ford Escape.
Right.
And that was experience. I was not expecting it to be fun, and I test drove a lot of other vehicles, and walking out with a Ford Escape was not something I saw in my plans that day.
Right.
But I even went home and then went back and got it, if that tells you anything. And I think of the things that, I was looking at this assignment in the notes that you were like, hey, let's talk about this. I was like, all right. And I kept thinking, well, what were the selling points? And I even talked to David about it. I was like, well, it would either have to be a car or an SUV, because those were what were my selling points. Well, I don't have kids right now, but do I want them? Well, I have to have something that is going to hold up and handle kids. It's got to be easy to clean, because kids somehow get everything everywhere in like the most creative of ways. So it can't be all, like the insides that look like a spaceship. Well, it can look cool, but can you clean it easily?
Right.
Nobody has time to dismantle the entire inside of their car. What are you going to do? Turn your back on your kids for 5 minutes? You okay? I worked at Disney for a long time, and I have nieces and nephews. No. So you got to be able to get the kids inside quick, get their stuff inside if they're babies or toddlers or, old enough to run around, let alone, you've got groceries. And then, well, what if you're just going to the gym that night? Are you going to throw your stuff all the way in the back? Or is the back seat big enough for you to throw stuff on it without making a huge mess? I don't know. It's just things. I was like, well, so I went car for gas mileage. That was the final.
Okay. So
that was
the reason I didn't go car was because I know Chevy got rid of basically all their cars, minus the Camaro. They got rid of the Cruise. They got rid of the Malibu. The Impala's gone. I believe, I don't think they have any cars left other than sports cars. They have the Camaro and they have the Corvette. Ford also did the same thing. They got rid of the Fiesta. They got rid of the Fusion.
Did they keep the Focus?
Nope. I think they got rid of that too.
Oh, wow.
Or they are in the process of getting rid of it. So all they're going to have left is also the Mustang. And their reasoning behind it was partly sales and partly how much more they make on SUVs per unit.
That should say something. How much they make per unit that they can let go of their entire car lineup?
Well, that's the thing. But the thing is, if you buy, so like, I'll say, for instance, my mother-in-law went from a Pontiac G3, which was the Chevy Spark, or no, the Aveo, sorry, the one before the Spark, the Aveo clone. And she went to a, interestingly enough, the Buick, the small Buick SUV, the smallest one. I think it's the Rendezvous. Yeah, the Rendezvous.
My sister had one of those. That thing was. Now, I don't know if she just had bad luck, but she had like a hit and run in it and some other things, and there were other things just breaking, and it was like an '05. She just drove this thing into the ground. I'm like, please call me for help. I'm worried about you. This thing survived 15 Ohio winters somehow, and
Right.
I'm like, are you okay out there? Like, she's like, oh yeah, it's fine. You know, calling me from like out front of her house. Tire's flat again. This is flat. This is broken. This is taped on. I'm like, you're worrying me. Are you sure you
Right.
don't want me to come home and help you? Are you okay?
But I think the point it proves though is that if you take the cars away, if they're dedicated to your brand, like
Don't buy them.
they'll buy. Yeah, she's dedicated to GM, not necessarily Pontiac or Chevy or Buick or whatever. Yeah, that she'll just move on to something else. And that's, I think, most buyers, and probably the way Ford, GM, and some of the other ones think of is, hey, they'll just move on to another one of our vehicles. And
You're not wrong. Brand
no,
loyalty, everything.
yeah. So, okay, I have to answer the actual original question. So SUV, the chassis I'm going to use is the. I'm going to use. I think I'm just going to go crazy here and say a Porsche Cayenne
Okay.
chassis.
All right. Yeah.
Just I think I was between that and a BMW chassis, purely for driving dynamics and probably chassis control, to where if you're gonna pick a chassis that's already tuned, you're gonna pick one of the best ones.
Okay, so you definitely we interpreted the assignment slightly different, but I think that's okay because good conversation. I totally went a different direction.
Right.
You know, on the
well, I think that's part of the show, is that we have different views of vehicles. And we don't have. We're not going to sit here and just agree with each other like that, and that's good.
That's boring.
Yeah.
We went through this as kids, by the way, and then people would try to tell, well, you guys can just get along, get out of the way, I'll kill him myself, you know?
Right.
Like
the engine. So I thought about this too, and I thought, okay, you could go V8, but in a culture of trying to save gas, and I hear, okay, I was listening to your latest podcast today. Are people literally putting gasoline in garbage bags there? I did see someone in Florida, their Hummer caught on fire because
I was going to send you that story. Then I was like, you know what, I'll mention it to him on the podcast. What a great timing. Yeah, so I actually I retweeted it and then sent it to my co-anchor, Cody. Yeah, it's happening. And people are, I think it's coming from people storing. So they're using approved containers even, but it's also people laying them on their sides. And I'm sure anybody listening to this podcast knows better than to do that. But
hopefully,
please, if you get gas, please put it in an approved container.
Look at us. Look us in the eye right now.
Yeah, I'm the captain now.
Yeah.
And
do not put gas in a garbage bag or any unapproved container.
And do not lay it on its side.
Yes.
The gas will not be functional after 3 to 4 months anyway, because it will basically
exactly.
It just just leave
Unless
it.
you're putting stabilizer in every single one of them.
Right, and that's a waste of time. So yeah, that's actually happening. And now on the garbage bag thing, I don't know if it's happening currently. I am seeing pictures of it, but it's cycled. Some of those pictures I believe are old.
Yeah.
A friend of mine sent me one today that was a lady pouring one in a like a laundry basket, and unfortunately, he goes, I'm going to
assume one with holes too. Well, of course it's in Florida. It's always in Florida.
Well, the gas station was a racetrack.
Folks, there's a reason we both moved out.
There is a reason we live very far away from Florida right now. And in fact, for once, you are way farther from. Normally, I am the one who was like, all right, I'm out, guys. You know, and you were like, I got you.
Wait.
Went to Canada.
I mean, gas is expensive here too, but I don't know of a shortage. I just put $40 in it yesterday, and there was no.
Yeah, we did not experience the shortage here. We did have some problems, in February. So when the storms hit Texas, because our infrastructure is different here. I actually did not know how bad our infrastructure was, or I would actually not have moved here. Our grid isn't connected to the national grid. And we were a few seconds from somebody actually shut our grid down because it was about to fry. So to put that in perspective, had we actually fried our grid, we would have had no power in the state of Texas. Only some of West Texas is part of the neighboring states because they're on the border.
Right.
we would not have been able to leave Texas. There would have been nowhere to get gas for. It's an 8 or 9 hour drive from my house to the Arkansas border. It's a 6 hour drive from here to the Oklahoma-Texas border, where I live. I live on the south side of San Antonio.
Right.
So I am closer to Mexico than I am to anywhere else that could be a safe spot for us. But, so these things happen, and these are things that I was considering when I was actually doing this assignment, because February was not too long ago.
Right.
And luckily, we've lived through natural disasters before growing up in Florida. So I kind of saw what was coming and prepared. But we had the boil water notice. People got sick. A lot of people died here in Texas of hypothermia because none of the buildings are up to code. We just happen to have a newer construction house, and our pipes are underground. So our water never froze, but we had the boil water notice for like a week. And we had no power on and off, like completely. They said they were cycling it on the news. That's what was released nationally to y'all. That is not what happened. It was not like they just couldn't get things to work. And everybody said because it wasn't winterized, like the turbines and stuff. So only like 10% of our power or less comes from turbines and things like that. And it's funny, I thought of all of this stuff while I was reading this assignment that you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, well, what do you do in these situations? Well, for me, all the way out here, because I kind of go worst case scenario as an adult, like, how could I escape that scenario? Well, a Toyota Corolla will get me the hell out of here.
That's true.
But my preference was the SUV. We even got rid of our cars. I had leased a BMW for a few years and returned it because my husband's 6'3". Like, fitting him into a car is such a pain. I actually traded in my Cruze years ago because I went to the Ford Escape then because it was just easier to get him in and out of the vehicle. Go to Home Depot, Lowe's, or whatever, get stuff for a project. Car is not really so great for it. Living in Texas, you kind of just do everything yourself anyway, and it's very North Fort Myers. You can tell where you are in Texas by how high the lift kits are. Like when I would drive home from college, as I got closer to Fort Myers, the lift kits would get higher and higher, and I knew I was getting closer to home.
Right. Or you remember my Sunfire that we talked about on the last episode. So you remember how, because I'm 6'2", so I'm fairly tall as well, that I used to stick my head where my sunroof was to get ample headroom.
Right, because it gave you an extra inch or two.
Yeah, so I'd actually drive like this.
Like slid over.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, I'm 5'10". I'm not exactly short, but I'm smaller than both Clint and my husband. And especially in college, I was like, I didn't become 5'10" until I was 25 or 26. Right. So in college, I'm 5'8", 100 pounds. So I'm like, gosh, do you guys need me to drive? And, I do remember you driving at like a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
Or
I just open the sunroof on a nice day and just stick my head literally out of it and drive.
It's just giving me the vibes of, do you remember the Family Guy episode where the cow is like in the limousine and he gets him the little Dairy Queen treat? He's like, he's had woohoo Hollywood. That's all I can think about. Sorry, everyone.
No, it's fine. So the engine, I thought V8, but then I was like, obviously not for gas. And then I thought 4-cylinder turbo, and I thought, but I want reliability. Not that 4-cylinder turbos can't be reliable, but the thing with an SUV is, okay, same thing with trucks. We'll say, okay, truck buyers, 95% of the time don't use them as a truck, right? And SUV buyers are largely the same in that they want the capability, but they don't necessarily ever have to do it. But they want, in case that one time you do, they have the ability to do it.
And SUVs now versus what they were, like when you and I started driving, like my Chevy Blazer back in the day, it was rated 18 to 23. I never got over 19.5 in it. Not ever. And I babied that thing. I drove it on the highway probably 600 miles a week because I drove an hour to and from my job on flat roads. And no, I did not drive like a total demon all the time. But now, so the Escape, we get probably 24, 25. And, it's a smaller tank, but it has the same storage capability that my Blazer did. And that's a big deal. I don't care about towing in this thing. Towing sucks. Unless you're experienced in pulling things, go to U-Haul and rent a truck for an afternoon. It's worth it.
Right.
The money you're going to save in getting a vehicle that doesn't need to be rated for towing heavy things, unless you specifically own a boat or are buying a boat, etc. For the average person, if you need to pull something or carry something that heavy that your, say, Ford Escape, Nissan Rogue, that class can't carry, you're probably better off just going to U-Haul or Lowe's or Home Depot, whoever still rents out trucks, and get one for the afternoon for a few hours or overnight and be done with it, because it's going to be a lot more sturdy and you're more likely to damage your own vehicle because you don't know what you're doing, you know?
Right.
Like, especially, you know, you're cautious in your own vehicle, but you're way more cautious when you're driving something that's not yours. And also, you're not worried about ripping something out of
I
the U-Haul
disagree on that.
because it's rated. Well, yeah, but it's rated for it, you know. So that was also a factor. I mean, what about, you know, diesel Jettas are great, you know.
They were when they were being made, yes.
Right. So, hold on, this was a hypothetical, sir.
Yes.
Like,
Okay.
don't.
Sorry. Yeah. No. That's fine. Diesel's a good. That's a good point, though. I didn't think of. I was thinking gas motor, and I did not think diesel. And that's so. Being that I have not said my engine choice yet, now I may have to change my thinking. I will say though, while you're saying
I've
gas
been
mileage,
waiting
I
15
got
years to hear that.
yeah, I did get. I got 23 miles per gallon on in my Hemi recently.
If y'all can't see me, I'm golf clapping right now because that's really impressive.
Thank you.
A
From
long
St.
way from the bird
Catharines
fire. No.
to Pembroke. It's a 6-hour drive, and I had stuff in the back because I was using it as a truck, and
Oh,
uh, it was stuff that was I couldn't put my tonneau cover down because it's stuck up in the bed, and I didn't want the things to break, so I did the speed limit the whole way, and I ended up with 23 miles per gallon.
look at that.
Yeah, it'll never happen again because that
Yeah.
was it was killing me driving down the highway and everyone was whipping past me, but I got 23. But I have gotten 21 normal highway driving.
I got abused driving the Beamer because I didn't drive like a jerk, but I think people expected me to. So the first week I drove it, I was pretty much by myself running errands and stuff. And I got home and I was telling David that I was like, man, I think I got cut off a lot today. You know,
Yep.
Texas people are very nice, but all their aggression is saved for the highway. I promise. It's the driving is like a level of aggressive, and I say that from the perspective of I'm a Texas claims adjuster as well. So I've worked states, most of the states I'm licensed in anyway, and Texas drivers and DC drivers are just legendary for how crappy they are with their aggression. And I get home like, I know, I swear. He's like, yeah, okay. Well, a couple weeks later, you know, he's off school. We're running errands and stuff, and I mean, every 2 seconds, I am being cut off. He's trying to race me on the highway home. Like, come on. Now, I would say the vehicle is designed for the Autobahn. So driving down Texas highways,
Right.
which we have a speed limit of 80 here, by the
I
way.
know. I'm pretty jealous of that.
Yeah, it's pretty great. When I first moved here, I thought of you, and I was like, 80, huh? Man, I'm gonna piss
Yeah.
Clint. Here I am. So that part was fun for 3 years. When the guy actually sold me the car, he was, you know, of course, going through the spiel and telling me all the things, like, you know, comparing the vehicles that I was looking at. And he goes, you know, you can get these upgrades, man. You could do this and you could do that. Like, sir, I don't know how old you think I am, but this thing is going to go from like here to Target and back. So I mean, I appreciate
What
getting there
series
quickly, but
BMW was it?
three,
Oh, it was a 3
320.
Series.
Yeah, it was a 320.
Nice. Nice.
I really did want the 328 because I had slightly upgraded seats, only for like the actual comfortability.
Mhm.
But I mean, it was great. I mean, it only had like 3,000 miles on. It's like 2,800 miles roughly when I got it, and it was awesome. I mean, even the base model had everything you could ever want, and
Yeah.
power seats, and it had two settings. Well, there's only two of us driving the car, mostly just me because David did not like driving my car.
That's fair.
After he almost launched my Escape into a bank because of the turbo. His car at the time was a Jeep Patriot, which is slow as shit. Sorry, I'm gonna get beeped for that one.
Well, no, the Jeep Patriot is not a Jeep.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry, hot take here on this live show, but I'm sure it's a
So,
fine vehicle. It's not
yeah,
a
it was
it's not a
fun to
Jeep.
drive, and it did great. But you know, it was really slow compared to the Escape, which is a lot more springy, especially with that turbo in it. And he had my car for the afternoon. First, I think his was getting repaired or worked up. I don't know why. I think it might have been in the garage actually, because we would put one in the garage and one in the driveway, so we'd have to rotate them. And
So they'd get each get
yeah,
miles.
right. Because we both worked from home, so it wasn't like our cars went anywhere. So he had my car for the day, and he came home kind of petrified because I guess he had dropped in gear, and he was easing it forward. He was pulling in, I guess, decided he needed to pull it in a little farther because it's a little more compact than his Jeep was. And I guess he just tapped the gas just slightly, and it just lurched. I mean, it launched. It would launch forward on you. I mean, it would go. I was still surprised. I was still very surprised by it because the current Escape is not a turbo, and it's. I mean, it goes, but so does the Toyota Camry. Like.
Right.
It's not. It's just not very exciting. But while we're going into and finishing nursing school, excitement's gonna have to go on the back burner for a bit.
I guess.
Yeah, I know. It was a fucking killer.
I'm still mulling the engine over in my head.
Yeah, I was trying to give you some time here.
I know, and I started thinking, what would make my dad happy is if I said the Cummins diesel.
Yeah, it would.
Which has a ton of power, and it's good on gas because it's a
Do
diesel.
me a favor and just put it in a Corolla just to see what happens. I would just love to see that dynamo testing.
Okay.
Wow, I was.
No, I was just thinking. Volkswagen used to have, and maybe still do, I don't know. They used to have a V10 diesel. No. Yes? V8, V10 diesel. They used to have, Google it for me what I'm talking about. They had a diesel and the Touareg. But the problem I have with that is the Touareg is basically the Cayenne, which is the chassis I chose. And that defeats the purpose if I just take someone else's vehicle and go, okay, this is mine. Although Volkswagen did it with the Dodge Caravan. If you remember, Volkswagen had a version of the Dodge Grand Caravan.
It was a 2008 Volkswagen Touareg.
Yeah. What was it, a V10 or a V8 diesel?
V10 diesel. Good call.
I knew it so. And it had...
We actually test drove a Tiguan the day we got the Jetta. And we were like... Because we traded both of our cars and left with the Jetta to cut costs for a few years. And... because we, again, were working from home and no longer needed both of our cars. And we almost walked out with a set with one each. We're like, no, that defeats the whole purpose of what we're doing. But, I liked it.
Yeah.
And, of course, they had, a black-on-black one in the showroom. Exactly the one David wanted. And, when your spouse is like, that's the one I want, you're like, and he's not a car person. So when the non-car person in the relationship says, I like that one, you're like,
right.
Yes, finally.
That one's not a box with wheels. That one's a car. And then part of me's thinking
a Wrangler, though. He wants a Wrangler.
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's what my son wants, is a Wrangler.
I will tell you, I was very upset when the Cherokee came back. If you remember.
Cherokee was your
like my thing.
Your dream.
I was really mad about the Patriot too because I felt like they copied the look of the Patriot and cut the spirit of the Jeep. Because the Patriot
I didn't mind the Cherokee so much.
It looked like an upgraded Cherokee physically, like somebody reimagined it for the next year. But but mechanically, it was like not. It was basically a car.
Yeah. I like the
new Cherokee.
The Trailhawk Cherokee. I really like that one.
Have you? What do you think of? I'm trying to give you as much time as I can here, sir.
I know.
So Jeep question: have you test drove the Renegade?
No, I sat in one.
What'd you think?
It was a little cramped for my size.
I've looked at a couple different ones, and I'm gonna sound like a total princess here, but the only one I liked was the Renegade, like the high end edition.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, or the Trailhawk edition, and I was like, come on, of course that's the one I want. And because it has a better ground clearance, and it looked, I don't know, it just looked better laid out, like the dash and everything. It just looked more of what I wanted. And of course, I'm like, must not buy anything until nursing school's over. Come on, 2 years. For anyone listening, I have 4 semesters to go starting in August. I'm like, come on.
Okay, I made up my mind.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going completely away from the diesel thing.
Crap to talk about.
No, I am going the V6 from a 370Z. And here's why.
Go on. Oh, I'm dying to hear this.
So I've So do you remember when the 350Z came out?
Uh-huh.
And it was like
Oh yeah.
we were in high school when it came out. And
Oh
I
yeah.
still remember I was a bag boy at the grocery store that I worked at, and I remember the first time that I saw the 350Z. It was a blue one, like that electric blue one,
I know exactly what you're talking
and it
about.
was in the parking lot. And I was pushing carts, and I remember I stopped and looked at it. And when it started, I don't Nissan does a very good job of making engines sound good. Like even my wife's Rogue sounds really good to me. Like for a 4-cylinder, it sounds growly. And so the V6 from the 370Z is a good looking motor. I believe it puts out over 300 horsepower. It's a V6, so it gets better fuel economy than a V8. Not as good as a 4.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm bridging a lot, and then I'm gonna downgrade my chassis from the Cayenne to what is the Porsche that's just under the Cayenne.
You want me to look up the Porsche lineup real quick?
Yeah, I know we're supposed to be car people, and I can't remember the names. I know there's a Cayenne. There's the Cayenne is the bigger one, and then there's one just under
The
it.
bigger one.
Yeah,
I like that. Let's see. Porsche models. Oh,
it's
gosh,
like it
their
basically
prices. I
the
don't think we wanna see
Tiguan, the Volkswagen Tiguan, but it's the Porsche because Volkswagen owns or Audi owns or whatever. Volkswagen owns Audi and Porsche and I think Lamborghini.
So
as well.
there's the different Cayennes. Then there is the Macan.
Yeah, the Macan. Yeah, that one. That chassis, Nissan 370Z motor.
You can get a base one for 52,000. It's a steal, sir.
Well, I don't need to buy that. I need their chassis. That's all I need. So the Nissan 370Z has a 3.7 liter V6 that puts out 1 second. Okay. Was honored by Ward's 10 best engines list in 2008. So that tells you how long that motor's been around. So also, though, it's been out that long, so it has a lot of parts for it. It puts out 325 horsepower, which is decent. And they also use it in the Infinities at the time.
This just went a different direction than I was expecting. That was not. You took it a totally new direction. I was not expecting that. I'm impressed.
Now, again, that is business me, my mind going, okay, I need to sell things and I need it to be exciting. Most people, so because there was also the part of me that said, hey, sports car, because so like to me, Chevrolet and like Ford and with so the Corvette and then the Ford GT, those are vehicles that get you to come into the dealership to look. Because you go in there, you go, I want to look at that car.
Yeah.
Right? But you're not going to leave with that car because you ain't got Corvette, you ain't got GT money.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's be real.
Yeah. You got Cobalt. I'm sorry. You have Cruise, you have Fiesta money. But you want to go see the Corvette and you want to see the GT. And that's what gets you in there. So part of me was like, hey, you got to have that vehicle that brings in. And we could do sports cars at a different time, but you got to have those people bring into the dealership.
When Pontiac brought out the GTO, that GTO we had 3 of them at the time, and I did drive all of them. Sorry, Clint. Clint did not get to drive them, unfortunately, and I did, and because I was an employee.
The only thing they let me drive was that Sunfire. I've already driven one of these.
Friend.
I have one.
But it brought people in. People came in just to talk to us about it. Of all ages. It drove a lot of traffic and got me yelled at a lot. Because people come in and ask you the most obscure freaking questions. It was like, why would I know that? Well, you work here.
No. I work at Home Depot. Yeah, people bring us the most obscure questions too.
I'm like, Well, and of course now, thank God for smartphones. Like, let's Google it.
Yes.
You know? Best thing ever.
People don't like when I do that. When I'm on the phone with them at work and they ask me a question, I'm like, A, I don't know why that matters. But B, I'm going to Google it. And they're like, well, I could have done that. I'm like, I know you could have.
But here we are.
But here we are. You're calling me.
Would you rather me say, I know, and then give you the wrong answer and hang up? Or would you like me to say, hold on, let me find that for you?
Yeah. How does this cement block hold up to tectonic plate movement? I don't know.
The
Why
other
would I?
option is me going and finding somebody, and they might know the
Yeah.
answer, but you know what they'll probably say? Let me Google it.
Yes, I'm gonna Google it for you. And they're like, ugh. What's the phone number for Canadian Tire? Which, another story here. And it's like, I'll Google it for you because how many
Why
people
would I
call
know
me and
that?
yeah, how many people call us and go, well, what's the number to Home Hardware, which is another hardware store? And I'm like, why would I know that? Like, what? You found my number. Why
Well,
didn't you find theirs?
lots of things. So it's like working for Disney. What time's the 3 o'clock parade? Say that back to me very slowly.
Yeah.
What they
5
usually
o'clock.
mean though is where from here, where does the 3 o'clock parade go by? Or when does the 3 o'clock parade go by here?
Right.
Like 3:05, because that's the opening point. Are you sure? No.
This is my first.
It hasn't gone by me every day for 5 years.
No.
I'm lying.
But anyway, so I thought sports car because of that reason. But the problem is, if you get them in to look at your sports car and you have nothing else to sell them, it does you no
They're
good.
leaving.
You're going to have a dealership with one car sitting there that people are coming in to look at and walking away with nothing.
Right. And if you don't have that relationship with the community to say like, oh, this is a reputable person, or he helped me when it was broke, they're not going to come buy some high-end vehicle from you. Like that you have to have that relationship to get people to buy the high-end vehicle. It's just like when you go buy something, you might buy something, like an older video game used, or maybe a mid-age system, slightly used. But if you want to buy, like buying a Nintendo Switch or a PS5, you're probably not going to buy a used one unless you know the person personally.
No. For sure.
And I
right
think
now,
the same would apply.
Would cost $2,000 if you bought it used.
Right. I've been trying to get my hands on one for like.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so I have a sub question to this.
Okay.
Okay, and I know we'll probably wrap this up here pretty quick. Sub question, because I thought I was just thinking about that. Oh, you get people into the dealership, but you don't get them to buy anything. That doesn't do any good. Okay, your manufacturer, Matt Motor Company, you can piggyback on another brand's dealerships.
Okay.
Any brand. What brand do you piggyback with?
Like their layouts and styles and
No. So just like, okay, so you know how you worked at a Pontiac, GMC, Buick,
yeah,
Saab, I don't know, whatever. And so basically, the sign would read Pontiac, Buick, GMC, Matt Motor Company, but you get to have your cars in already established dealerships.
Whose do I want them in?
Whose do you want them in?
Oh, come on, that's unfair.
I'm going to answer it. I'm going to go ahead and answer. I already have an answer.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going into Hyundai, Kia dealerships.
Ah, that's a good answer.
Purely because they sell in very high volume. I thought about Volkswagen, but because Volkswagen does sell great globally.
Volume-wise, I would probably go with looking at it nationally, I would say something like Hyundai, Kia. Ideally, because I'm kind of stuck on like how the dealership did everything. I would go with BMW, because of how they interact. It's different than how a lot of other companies interact with potential customers or existing customers. Like the service level is like 50 out of 10. It's
right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Worth it. But for selling units, I would probably have to say something like Hyundai, Kia, Ford, Dodge, Jeep. Something that's no, I'd have to go with something that actually sold cars. So I'm going to be probably relegated to Hyundai, Kia, or
do you go with somebody who doesn't sell cars? Because you
have a car option.
You described a car option, and that's oh my goodness, it's like an onion, and we're peeling away layers. Because in your case, yes, you may not want to be viewed next to other cars. You want to be viewed as a standalone to the cars.
Right. I'm the car option that might bring somebody into the dealership that buys them a truck, or vice versa. So for a business relationship, it might be better to go looking at it from that perspective. Man, everything has layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers.
People are going to watch this and go, "Wow, they did not have any idea what they were going to talk about going into this," and that was kind of the point.
Yeah. Well, half of this is us. We've known each other for so long, so I think we kind of talk from up here.
Yeah.
and I have to remember to explain myself in a way that I normally wouldn't have to with you. Um, I would say, looking at it from that perspective, then I'd probably put myself in a Ford dealership or in a GM dealership, because if
They
they've
also have cars.
eliminated their cars, they've eliminated my competition. So there
Yes.
isn't, my car is the Toyota Corolla or the Honda Civic, but they don't want a Toyota or a Honda. Some people are very against those types of cars. They want the
Mhm.
comparison, but they don't want that car because everybody has it.
Okay.
Or they haven't reached a stage of their life where that doesn't matter to them anymore.
Okay.
That's
You know, I'm still gonna go Hyundai Kia purely because I think the vehicle I described is probably on the high end
I'd agree.
of their vehicles. So people are still gonna come in. And I think if you style it right, the SUV with that chassis and that motor, or whatever the newest Nissan V6 is, like the V, I just want a Nissan V6 in it purely because I think they sound good, um, and they have decent power. Not the CVT though. I don't want the CVT because that will stop people from buying it.
It will stop anybody that knows anything about cars. Absolutely.
Yes. If I had to choose a transmission to go with it, it would be probably the GM Ford shared. I think it's a 10-speed.
Well,
Only because
I did not think that far into it. I would actually.
I didn't until just now. But
yeah, anyone watching this will be like, "What the? Where
yeah,
did this
yeah.
took this
Why
went
now
direction?"
transmissions? Like, no, it does. It matters though,
This is
because
what I wanted to ask you
transmissions.
about. When in so since we live in different countries, we can't really text each other. We have to go through DMs and Twitter. And I wanted to DM you these things, and I was like, no, no. If I just wait, we can talk
Yeah,
about it, and that actually is better
it's gonna
conversation.
unravel right here on
Yeah,
air.
exactly. Unravel my entire thought process on air. Great plan.
Yes. So yeah, I would go the GM Ford 10-speed.
If you
Only because it's basically a CVT because it shifts gears so often. So you get the fuel mileage, but then you have also a lot of support, and people go, "Hey, it's a real transmission."
So I have some questions about your SUV.
The
So
Rogue.
your no
Oh, mine.
your
Okay,
your
my
potential
Clint
car.
Clint Motor Company. Yes.
Yeah, the Clintmobile.
Yeah.
So is your rear, is it going to be a hatchback, or is it going to be like barn door style? That's my first question. Or like tailgate.
It would not be barn door style. So I don't know if you knew me at the time. My parents used to have a Tahoe, and it was barn door style.
Wow. That was a
Um,
long time
it was a long time
ago.
ago. It was a '97 Tahoe. They had the barn door style, and the problem is when you're unloading it in the rain, there is nothing to cover you.
Right. I like
So
so
no,
my Chevy Blazer
and there's a
had,
giant bar in the middle.
yeah, which people don't realize until they open it.
Yes. Yeah.
My Blazer was my favorite. So the Escape has a hatchback, and I like
Mhm.
it, but one of my Blazer I preferred because the glass lifted up, but the
Yeah.
tailgate folded down, like because it's basically an S10 truck.
Yeah.
And that was my favorite thing because I could literally sit on it anywhere and be shaded because the rear glass was tinted.
Yeah, I would do that.
That would be my ideal. So top three colors. Two of them have to be standard, like kind of somewhat,
Okay.
and the
Yeah.
third one can be. You get three vehicles, and you've ordered three from the factory. Finally, you get your three concepts in. What three
Okay.
colors do you have coming?
Only 3 colors. 2
You get three,
standard and 1 special.
right?
Okay.
Unless you think you're brave and think you can sell three niche colors.
No. That's a good question. 3 colors, 2 standard. So I'm trying to think of what I see mostly on the road. I'm going to choose red.
Okay.
Red first of all,
That's
because
fine.
I love red, obviously.
He's finally accepted this.
Yeah, I finally accepted that. Um, oh God, I'm not going to go any
This is a good
Okay.
question. This has turned out to be a
This
better
is a good
question than I
question.
thought.
This is a good question because you only have 3 colors. Most
Right.
colors have a full. And thing is, if you're talking, okay, so if we're talking though, having to sell in volume, you've got to have. I want to say white, black, and tan.
Right, and you got to pick three because you haven't made enough money yet to get the
Right.
contracts to get the
I don't
special.
even know that. Well, because that's the other thing is, again, you're trying to get people into the showroom, so you might want to have one special color that people get
Gets
like, oh,
people
oh
to look.
wow, I don't
Yeah,
want
that
that
looks
color.
really good under
Yeah,
showroom lights. So,
right. I don't want to drive that around, but it's cool.
but I would
Um,
say for yours, if I were voting, one of one of the best colors I've ever seen is that Arctic white that VW has it, Mercedes has it, Audi, like that Arctic white. It's a real deep color.
mhm.
It has this real nice gloss to it, and it looks amazing on a showroom floor. If I were to choose white, that would be the white I would choose.
Okay.
I think that on an SUV, it's a really good selling point because does it show dirt? Maybe a little, but does it polish
Yeah.
beautifully? Totally. Other silver, like a real nice silver because that hides everything.
Oh my goodness, only 3 colors. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna say silver because I think silver you can kind of bridge the white black gap and kind of get both. I'm
Yeah,
gonna say
that's good.
tan because tan is a very the tan like gold kind of
Champagne color.
beige, yeah, just the kind of the color, but that everybody has.
I don't understand it.
I don't either, but it's
I
popular,
don't
so
get
I'm
it.
going that. And then, but my flashy color
Yeah.
is gonna be lime green.
Do you know what I think of when I think lime green? Back home, when we still lived in North Fort Myers, there's this guy that drove this car around that was black and lime green.
Okay, I don't remember
And
that.
I would always see it up and down Bayshore Road. And
Uh-huh.
the front end of the car, I think it was the front end of the car was lime green, and then it had a checker. Then it kind of checkered into black, and I think it had like lime green trim. I think it
Uh-huh.
was a race car, like the guy raced or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it lived right on one of the main roads, and I would drive by it with my family all the time. I'm really dating myself. This would have been like early 2000s, late 90s.
Yeah.
But I remember when I think of lime green, that's what I think of. That's
Okay.
I think that's a good color because it looks
Okay.
really good on our showroom floor. Got any questions for
So
my car?
yeah, no, wrapping it up, I'm gonna say 3 colors for you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Three colors?
Three
Well,
colors. Any
I'm
three
gonna
colors
stay
you
away
want.
from a white car because how I imagine the car looking, I think it'll look like a snowball instead of nice. I don't think it'll look right.
Okay.
So I would say my favorite
Did
color is like
did
this.
you say yours was gonna be a hatchback, or did you say it was gonna be a
It's probably gonna
trunk?
be a sedan with a
A
trunk
sedan.
to
Okay.
start.
A small
Yeah,
sedan.
a small. Yeah, it's probably gonna be about I would say Corolla sized.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
um,
With a trunk. All right.
yeah, with a no frunks, just a
No
trunk,
frunks.
no
Okay.
frunks. Ugh. Um, hmm.
You're not
I
gonna do
would
anything
also
weird like
silver. I would probably say silver for one of the color. At least one of them has to be silver or gray. I see a
okay.
lot of that here, because our water here in Texas is really bad. Uh,
Hmm.
super dark colors aren't a good idea because it shows up and it's really bad.
Yeah.
So it would either probably have to be white or trying to think of the colors I've had on my cars. They've all been white, blue, and black. Really screwed myself here. Um, oh my god, my neighbor even has a champagne color. Ugh, it's just a champagne color SUV. That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking
Yeah.
when you said that. Um, I would say probably like a lighter blue, not a super dark royal blue. That's actually my favorite, but more of a lighter blue to kind of hide some of the dirt and add some color to it. If I was gonna go completely niche color, if I didn't choose lime green, which I will say a different color out of because you did pick lime green, I would go with um, I would not buy this color again because it's so many years later. But
It's not about yeah, it's not
wait,
about us
what?
buying it. It's just
Right, exactly. That's what I'm telling myself here. You remember what your Sunfires
yeah.
it
Uh-huh.
looked like when it was brand new, like that?
Yeah.
How on a showroom floor
Before
that
fit.
brings
Yep.
people. Yeah, people just you can't not look at it. So
Yeah.
that would be my showroom piece. And then of course,
Okay.
you're gonna have somebody that eventually does buy it. Might be sitting there for a year, but eventually
Yeah.
someone will take it, and that would
Well,
be my
like
color.
yeah, I like buying cars that are different colors just because like I don't
It's
know, like
different.
I want my vehicle to stand out. I don't want to walk into the parking lot and go, I don't know which one's mine.
Right. When
Right.
we go to
So
Target, there's another person that has an Escape similar to ours. And I mean, I can tell the difference, but from far
yeah.
away, they're actually similar trims on this one. And I actually bought David new rims and better tires and had a car accident in December, and I have not had the rim repaired yet. So I had to put the stock ones back on. Luckily, I kept the stock ones. Always
Yeah.
keep your stock tires, y'all. Um, and I kept the stock rims. Um, plastic wheel covers. Ugh, I hate them. But
Yeah.
that's how I was able to tell them apart. It was because I could do it from far away because I knew what my rims looked like. But yeah, that's I see. Yeah, I liked looking at the car. It's a huge investment next to a house. It's one of the biggest investments you ever spend your money
Yeah.
on. So being able to look at it and go, I'm glad I spent some money on this, even if it's not the exact car you want. Then you're at least like, okay, I can live with this because many of us don't have a choice. Whatever you can afford is what you get, and that's it. So that was like what was in my head when you wanted to talk about this was like, well, this might not be the exact car they want, but how can I make it an option that, yeah, they want the Lamborghini, but
Yeah.
try the Matmobile.
Right.
It's got these cool features and it comes in a couple different colors. This is your, then you do well after a while, and the contractors are like, you know what? Okay, we have a bigger budget. We can start throwing in different shades of colors and different types of colors and customize.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. It's about the initial making money in my
Right.
book.
What is going to throw you in
Yes.
there? Get your foot. It's going to help you hit the ground. Do you hit the ground rolling?
Hit the ground rolling.
Sorry, I'll show myself out. I'm sorry.
And with that, we're going to wrap up the show. Thanks again for watching. So the Auto Riff comes out bi-weekly on Sundays. But now we'll be weekly with this one because so if you're watching live, which I could see a big 0 up there, you're not. If people start watching live, this will come out sometime on the week that the normal Auto Riff doesn't come out because I work retail and there's no consistency to that schedule. And then the podcast version will come out on the Sunday that is opposite of the normal episodes. You can follow me on all my social media accounts, which are in the description over there, right there. And then you can follow Matt on Twitter. I know as I'm Poetic AF, which is also
really
in
change that.
the description. And also on Matt's other podcast called the ComaCast, where they talk about Matt. What do you guys talk about?
Oh, we talk about true crime and unsolved crimes against the LGBTQ community because obviously.
Wait, are you coming out right here on the show?
Again?
I'm just kidding.
Well,
Again? Well, we've already been through this once. So thanks again for anyone who does watch this in the future. We appreciate it. We're going to leave on that note. Thanks again, Matt.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Have a good one.